All right, so we are bringing you the latest on this deadly shooting that took place in Texas a short time ago. We learned some of the motive, possible motive for the shooting, as well as some more information on how he obtained those guns and whether or not it was legal. Joe Concha is a media reporter for The Hill, and Judy Miller is a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist and a Fox News contributor. Joe, let me ask you a little bit about the dialogue that has been going on around this. I mean, as usual, the debate just immediately begun about guns, and we sort of heard a lot of the same talking points we've heard before. I wonder if the American public is tired of that.
Oh, I'd say they're definitely numb, Melissa. This is the 377th mass shooting this year. We're at the point now where we're actually ranking mass shootings in churches. It's not even like, hey, this is the biggest mass shooting in Texas. Now we actually have rankings for churches. It's just so sickening. I have a 4- and a 2-year-old at home, and I hear that an 18-month-old died here. Grandparents and grown children. It's horrible. But you're right. The script is always the same. We saw last week in that horrific attack in downtown Manhattan, just 20 blocks from here, and then we see at night, primarily in cable news, primarily on social media, that the debate will become about immigration because it was a Muslim that rented a truck in Jersey that plowed down those poor people on that bike path. And now, in this particular instance, we're already seeing, for instance, from the New York Times, they have a ticker that's up right now that has hours, minutes, and seconds, and they ask the question, how long before it's too soon to debate gun control? So, yeah, I mean, with 377 shootings, that's obviously more than one a day. It's become formulaic at this point in terms of what happens next after the initial reporting, like we just saw, is done.
But, you know, Judy, the indications are that this is a guy who should not have been able to buy weapons. He had been dishonorably discharged from the Air Force for violently assaulting his wife and his child, and then either lied about it on the applications or somehow was able to get his hands on weaponry. If somebody is intent on doing evil, they're going to do it, aren't they?
They are, but it's a lot easier to do evil with an automatic or semi-automatic weapon, and I will never understand why, even if you're a hunter, you need an Uzi to hunt for your lunch. I mean, at some point, we've come from Sandy Hook and the slaughter of the children in that school to this little postage stamp town, Sutherland Springs, in Texas. It is just heartbreaking, but at what point are Americans going to say, enough of this, enough slaughter, enough useless death, when we can just start by denying people like this demented animal the right to buy a weapon. We can start by enforcing the gun laws we have on the books and denying people weapons who shouldn't have them, and then talk about things, not talk about what the Congress is talking about, like whether or not we ought to have silencers on weapons, but getting rid of bump stocks that will boost up a semi-automatic into an automatic. At some point, the American people are going to rise up and say, we've got to get serious about this. We've got to stop it. And until that happens, we're just going to go on having these horrific scenes.
Judy, I don't know if that, and John, I'm sorry to jump in, and I agree with you on everything that you said. But after Sandy Hook, when 24 children are mowed down in an elementary school, after Las Vegas, where 58 people are killed from a maniac that has a gun from a hotel room on a 32nd floor, after those shootings, nothing ever happens here. We have two sides that are so entrenched in their particular belief on this that I don't see after those shootings how this would change anything either. It's the same script over and over again, John.
But again, you do have, a couple of heroes who had access to guns or a gun, who helped make this thing from being worse than it actually might have been otherwise by taking on the shooter with a semi-automatic weapon. I mean, as the one of the police investigators we were talking to earlier said, these guys are cowards.
So the way the debate will carry out tonight in a lot of the opinion shows will be that exact argument that a guy with a gun stopped another guy with a gun, and that's why we can't regulate these sort of things, while the other side would say, well, neither probably should have had those weapons in the first place. Again, rinse, repeat, and recycle.
And that's only in this instance. What about all the instances in which there's no one there to fight back?
Right.
Again, we're just learning more about the motivations of this suspect. It appears he had problems, had been making threats to his mother-in-law or ex-mother-in-law, who was a member of that church. But the investigation goes on. Judy Miller, Joe Concha, thank you both.
Thank you, John.